Yeah. So this is my first time doing one of these videos. Um, I don't know why I decided to do this, but I feel like I have to because, man, it is tough being an Eagles fan right now. Um, third straight loss yesterday. They lost to Seattle 20-17. Just a horrible way to lose your third game in a row on the road. A game where you had the lead pretty much till the very end. Then some blown coverage and just a terrible decision by the quarterback at the end to cost them the game. And it's if you're an Eagles fan, it's not a good time, right? I think honestly at this point, their third loss in a row, just seeing how both sides of the ball have looked. Um, I think the Eagles are cooked as a Super Bowl contender. I think they're done. Um, Now, I mean, obviously, they've already clinched a spot in the playoff, and they could win a playoff game, but I don't see this team ripping off 3, 4 straight wins in the postseason to either go to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl. I think that's not even up for debate anymore. Um, this team compared to last year's team, they're nothing alike, honestly, from of an offense and a defensive standpoint. I know going into this year, we talked about how well, a lot of people talked about how, the Eagles are losing both their coordinators. Um, it's not something when you look back in history usually goes pretty well. And for a long time this season, the Eagles were kind of defying that notion, winning what 10 of their first 11 games, and then you know losing the last three here. Not to say that there weren't you know issues on either side of the ball during this strong start they had. Obviously, all year long, we kept saying, like, the Eagles, they're winning, but they haven't played their best game yet. Eventually, when they put it together, like, look out, right? And I think we've gotten to the point now where this is who they are. Like, there's nothing to put together. You know what I mean? Like, we kept saying, like, the offense, they're not playing at it a full tilt. They're not clicking on all cylinders. And, when they figure it out, this team's going to be probably the best team in the league. But here we are, 14 games in, and they still haven't figured it out. And I don't think they're going to figure it out. I think the play calling on offense has been abysmal. It's been predictable and it's been uninspiring. Um, I mean, you watch this offense and they run the same 6 or 7 plays, right? It's um, the shotgun handoff, kind of the RPO mix, where it's not really much of an RPO anymore. It's really just handing the ball off. Um, the shotgun handoff, it's the QB draw, right? Like you always know when the QB draw is coming now. As soon as the tight end moves or the running back moves out, it's a QB draw. The bubble screen, the dreaded bubble screen is going to be the end of me um, in my life. Um, the bubble screen yesterday to Goddard, where 180-pound Devontae Smith is your lead blocker, made no sense. Other than the bubble screen, they do that short like post route to AJ Brown to try to get 6, 7, 8, 10 yards whenever they can. That's the same. They run that play all the time. It's Goddard over the middle, and then it's the tush push and like either a go route to AJ or Devontae, or sometimes for some reason to Quez Watkins, who has proven, one, he can't get separation, two, he can't get physical. If it's a 50-50 ball, he's not going to win because he's like, I don't know, he's like scared of contact or scared of, like, I don't know. It just, whenever you throw a go route to Quez and he's not open by like 3 yards, it's a 50-50 ball. Like I just don't trust he's ever going to win that 50-50. And even when he's open, he drops the ball half the time. So like Quez has all this speed, and we talk about Quez's speed, but That's all he has. Like he can't do anything else other than run really fast. So like he's not even a factor in the offense to me anymore. So I mean, it's gotten to the point now where like defenses know this, right? Like they know these are the plays that they're going to run according to this formation. This is the play they're going to run. I mean, they had Christian McCaffrey on the Manning cast on Monday night, and he called out a QB draw right away. Like that's how predictable this offense has become under Brian Johnson. Like it's obvious last year, the Shane Steichen, the play caller, was pretty much the engine to this offense, right? Like you see, without him, this offense is completely different. And in Indianapolis, they're winning games with our backup from last year, Gardner Minshew. Like he's got a complete hold of that offense in Indianapolis. They're running good stuff and they're winning games with a backup quarterback. Meanwhile, us with our starting quarterback, our franchise quarterback, we can't score. Like it's always been, now they've had games where they've scored 30 points, but this team has had red zone issues all year long. They've struggled to run the ball enough, in my opinion. Like I don't understand what they're doing with DeAndre Swift, and Rashad Penny apparently can't see the field. Neither can Boston Scott, and it's just like Kenneth Gainwell gets entirely too much time, if you ask me. And it's the same run play. It's just shotgun handoff, shotgun handoff, shotgun handoff, shotgun handoff. Like they don't mix it up. Like every once in a while, Jalen might get under center to run the ball, but it's the same run play. And the offensive line is good, but I don't think it's been as good as it's been in years past. I think Jalen's been under duress a lot more this year than he has been in the last couple of years. And the offensive line, even though it's graded as the best offensive line in football by PFF, I think has struggled at times during this regular season. And despite how Jalen looked earlier in the year, I don't think Jalen's playing his best football right now. I know he was sick yesterday, and that probably played a part. And I still think that he's injured. I think there's still something going on with his knee. But from a decision-making standpoint, it's not as crisp as it was, I think, earlier in the year and as it was last year. There were plenty of missed opportunities last night that just Jalen didn't see. And I think I don't know if he's in his own head about his injury, about his illness, or he feels like he has to run for his life sometimes. Because I said the protection hasn't been as it's been the last couple of years. And I honestly think it's play calling. I think Jalen, if you want to say he's regressed this year, and I don't know if I'm not comfortable saying that he's regressed, but I think the play calling and the predictability of it and the lack of creativity has made, one, easier for defenses to prepare for them, and two, made it harder for Jalen to, be productive. It's just bad. I think Brian Johnson's bad. It's just bad. It's bad. Like it's the same plays and the same opportunity in the same like situations. I would say situationally, the Eagles have been, I think, good. Not great, but they've been good this season. But some of the play calling in some of the same situations that we've seen for the Eagles this year has been like, it's been maddening. It just doesn't make any sense. Like as many QB draws I've seen on like 2nd and 20 or I don't know, 3rd and 15. It just doesn't make any sense to me. The screens are very predictable. Whenever the Eagles stack their receivers on both ends, when there's one guy at the line of scrimmage and one by behind, 9 times out of 10, that's going to be a screen pass. And 9 times out of 10, it is a screen pass. The defenses see it coming. And the Eagles only are able to get a couple of yards here or there with that. It just doesn't, like, the offense just doesn't make any sense. Like there's way too much talent on this offense for them to be as predictable and anemic as they've been. It just doesn't make any sense. And the defense, it's night and day. Like I have to apologize to Gannon, Jonathan Gannon, their defensive coordinator from last year. I had issues with him last year. I didn't think he was very good, but compared to how the defense looks this year, he actually wasn't bad. He wasn't. Like I have to admit that. The defense. You want to talk about regression? This defense has regressed substantially year over year, right? Like we knew there were issues in the secondary, but this team's all of a sudden inability to create pressure on the quarterback is it's mind-boggling. Like it's stunning. Like they just don't get home anymore. They don't. Like Reddick, I think, has like 10 sacks, but like I think the next person has like 5, right? And they're just not getting home. They're just not getting home. There really hasn't been much creativity from a pressure standpoint on defense either. They're not blitzing much, especially on 3rd and long, which makes no sense. That's when you bring the house, and they never blitz. And like I know they have Patricia in there now, and like honestly, the defense didn't look terrible, other than James Bradbury. Like the defense didn't look terrible yesterday, right? Now, a lot of that could be that they were playing Drew Lock last night, right? So like I don't know, after one game with Matt Patricia, I'm not going to be like, well, yep, Patricia's better than Desai, but like I don't think necessarily yesterday's loss was really on the defense, right? Like the offense only scoring 17 points just isn't good enough in the NFL. It's just not. You're not going to win games scoring 17 points. You're not, unless you have a great defense, and the Eagles have far from a great defense, right? But still, the defense, if I get back to them, it has their issues, right? They're not creating a pass rush. They're extremely vulnerable over the middle. The Eagles have never prioritized or put any, I would say, emphasis on addressing the linebacker position, right? It's been like that for years. They, other than Nakobe Dean, they haven't really drafted linebackers high. They haven't really signed high-profile like linebackers in general. They just don't think it's important. They just want to create a pass rush and then have 2 solid corners on the ends and maybe like a ball hawking safety, right? That's how they've looked the last couple of years, and they've been able to get by, right? But now they're not getting pressure. Now the corners are out there longer. Now the linebackers are back in coverage, and the linebackers are getting torched because, quite honestly, they're not very good. And there's a reason why they were available for what they were available for, and that they were cheap. And that's because they're not very good. They're not very productive. And when you're not getting the pass rush, what you're doing is you're creating more time for these very good athletic players on the other side to get open. It's the NFL. These guys are going to find ways to get open. It doesn't matter how good Darius Slay is, how good James Bradbury might be. Like if you give a quarterback enough time and you give these receivers enough time, they're going to figure out ways to get open. And because the pass rush can't get home and they can't figure out creative ways to put pressure on quarterbacks, even Drew Lock, the defense is going to get torched. It's going to happen to any defense at all. You have to be able to rush the passer. You have to be able to create some kind of pressure, make him feel uncomfortable to get off the field, to get stops, to get the offense back on the field. And this defense hasn't been able to do it. They've been playing soft all season long. They haven't been blitzing. The pass rushers haven't been getting home. Like Josh Sweat's been a ghost for I don't know how long now. Brandon Graham, I love him, but he's older now. Like he's getting pressure when he can, but he's not playing like he used to. And I don't know. I mean, Reddick's getting his sacks. He's obviously not getting the sacks to the rate he was last year, but he's getting sacks. And I don't know. There are a lot of problems with this Eagles team. And I think that there's not enough time now to get it fixed enough for them to make a legitimate Super Bowl run. Now, they do have 3 weeks here against 2 bad teams. They're playing the Giants twice, and then they're going to play Arizona in the middle of those 2 Giant games. But, I mean, they have an opportunity to kind of get things right, to kind of figure things out with the offense, to kind of tighten things down on defense, give Patricia a couple of more weeks to kind of figure out, what the strengths and weaknesses are of this defense and how to scheme them, I would say, better than Desai has all season long. But unless the Eagles come out the next 3 weeks and they're just – it's like, I mean, clicking on all cylinders, just going bananas on offense and looking great on defense. Like I have no reason to believe the Eagles are going to make the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, make the NFC Championship game, right? Now as far as the 2 seed goes, and the division, like they control their own destiny, right? Because the Cowboys lost to the Bills, all the Eagles have to do is win out. And really, all they do have to do is beat the 2 Giants teams. They beat the Giants twice, and they win the division most likely, unless Detroit goes off. They'll get the 2 seed, so like they'll still have to play in the first round, which is not ideal considering how banged up and old this team is. But at least you start with a home game against a team you should be able to beat. Otherwise, you end up being the 5 seed, the 6 seed, you're on the road, and yeah, the Eagles don't have any shot to even make it to the NFC Championship game if that happens. They have a couple of weeks here, but again, unless they look like world beaters these next couple of weeks, like I have no reason to believe that this team will be able to make a deep playoff run. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. It's frustrating because there's so much talent on this team, so much talent they brought back from the year before from that Super Bowl run. And to think that 2 coaches, 2 coordinators made this much of a difference is crazy. It's wild. It's just, to see the way they started, to have the hope to think, they're winning games despite not playing their best football. They'll figure it out. They'll play their best football, and to kind of go like, is there something they need to figure out, or is this who they are? Right. And I think we're leaning towards now, like, yeah, this is who they are. And I don't think they're going to get back to who they were last year at this point. Like there's no evidence. Again, what, 15 games, 14 games, like there's enough evidence to show that this isn't last year's team and they're not going to get back to being last year's team. So I think you have to listen, you're going to make the playoffs. You've already made the playoffs. I don't think this season you throw the season away, right? You keep playing, you try to win games, but eventually when they lose, because again, I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl now, you're going to have to figure out what to do with their coordinators. Like I think Desai's doomed. Like if Patricia's taking over, and unless the defense regresses even more than it already has, I don't think there's an argument to bring Desai back. I don't think there is. Like if Patricia comes in and holds it down, and like I'm not saying they have to be like significantly better on defense, but if they don't get worse and they play a little bit better, like I don't see why you would bring Desai back. I don't. And as far as Brian Johnson goes, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think he's the guy. I know they say that Sirianni is heavily involved in the offense, especially during the week, but at the end of the day, he's the one calling plays. And Sirianni was heavily involved in the offense last year, and he didn't call the plays, and the offense looked a lot better. So I think either you ride it out with Brian Johnson the rest of the year, or Sirianni's got to take over play calling at some point. Like I think at this point, because they're at playoff bound, like Sirianni's got to pull the trigger. He's got to take over. Like I know he doesn't want to demote both his coordinators in the same year, but I don't think you can just throw away this season either. So it's obviously not working with Brian Johnson. And I think they need to address this now before it reaches some sort of tipping point and boiling point with some of the players, and it starts to get ugly on the sideline, in the locker room, things like that. Like I'm honestly surprised AJ hasn't lost his mind like more publicly, like on the sideline or at the podium or in the locker room or things like that. But I think we're at a very, 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 very close point where if the offense doesn't figure it out and they don't figure it out quickly, guys are going to start making noise. And I just don't want it to get there because that'll really mean the season's over. So Yeah, we'll see how things go the rest of the year. We have 3 weeks left until the postseason. Um, they have 3 cupcakes lined up. They got to take care of business, or um, yeah, it's going to be a short postseason for them for sure. But all right, that's all I have to say for that. Maybe I'll start doing this on a weekly basis so I can vent. But yeah, sucky time to be an Eagles fan. So if you get to watch this, cool. If you're not, cool.